Blog Talk Radio.
Much balance once again. Thank you for diving with us into Infinite Waters, broadcasting live from London. It's 8 p.m. and we've got a very special show. Just coming back from Hyde Park, the Pope was actually visiting London, so it was very interesting just to see so many people on the streets and everyone celebrating, and it was just something just to look at and say, wow. Very, very interesting. But we have very special guests. We've got a caller on the switchboard. We've got the guest we're having on tonight's show is Aseer the Duke of Tears. Aseer the Duke of Tears. And I've entitled this show Sovereign Mind. I just want to see if Aseer is actually on the line, because we have a kind of time difference issue. So let's just see. Caller from the 917. Hello?
Peace, brother.
Wow. This is amazing to have you, Aseer, on the line. Thanks for diving with us into Infinite Waters. I was just wondering, okay, is it 917, is that a New York area code, or is it a definitely, I just much appreciate taking time out of your busy schedule just to dive with us, and it's just a great occasion that you could be with us.
Thank you Father. I appreciate it, man. And everybody out there in what they now call the old world, which is really, our world. Thank you for all the support that we've gotten out there from all your listeners, as well as everybody, what they say. How do they say across the pond, right?
Right. Well, please just take a minute, just tell the audience a little bit about yourself, because some may not be familiar with your work, but please just take a minute or two.
Thank you, bro. I'm known as Aseer the Duke of Tears, Piers, meaning levels. I was born in what they refer to as Brooklyn, New York. But my family are natives of America, as well as what they now call the Kingdom of Morocco. Go back a couple of centuries, just like everybody else, I received knowledge of self, probably woke up around 15, 16, and from then on, it's just been a uphill journey, disseminating the difference between what is history and what is natural history, what is legal and what is lawful, the difference between possessing oneself, being possessed. Basically, all things metaphysical, esoteric, occult-wise. I had almost like a voracious appetite in terms of working to figure out why is it that it seems that there's huge chunks of our story missing, and in the acquisition of that knowledge, I was able to, do a lot of things and see a lot of people. And, a lot of things got revealed, specifically, like I said, in dealing with what is history and what is natural history, and why you don't really hear the term natural history right now unless you're talking about a museum, which is really a reliquary for all of our ancient artifacts and as well as other things, But specifically in America, growing up here, people who are original people who were born in America know that when you grow up here, there's this need for you to, I guess, disassociate yourself with anything that is historically relevant and actually factual, to assimilate into what they will call a colorable law system, which again is the appearance of a law, but really has nothing to do with it. But in a colorable system, in order for it to sustain itself, everyone within that system has to choose, or at least have a color chosen for them. So those of us that are original people here, we wind up with the racial nomenclature: Negro, Black, African American, anything that doesn't necessarily equate to land ownership, property, ancestral history, or the creator. So if you so long as you don't associate with any of those things, you can make money over here. Being a thug, rapper, basketball player, you know what I'm saying, police officer, soldier, anything to sustain Western society, then you can be accommodated for. So I never bought into any of that. So.
Right. I first came across your work, I think it was on YouTube, and you talked a lot about Moorish history. I've entitled this show The Sovereign Mind because, whenever I listen to you, you just remind me, that we are sovereign beings originally. And
that's right.
Living in London, the belly of the beast, you definitely get to see what the beast is eating. And, it's a very interesting city, London, because it's so multicultural, but at the same time, the UK, this small island, has been able to colonize the whole world, and it still runs the world. And you look at how indigenous people have been scattered all across the four corners of the earth, but an interesting thing is that they've always been there. That was the interesting thing.
That's right.
I found out when I was doing the science, doing the research, talk of the Olmecs, a lot of people feel that life just started in Africa and not other places, but civilizations have been everywhere, original people.
Yeah, that's what it is, bro. I mean, it's like we we are all waking up from a species monochrome-wide amnesia that started maybe about 6,250 years ago, to round it off, right? So in that now, we're all starting to wake up to where we were before the global or celestial empire that we had began to fall, you know. So the reason why it fell is because half of us who were falling asleep decided that we were going to leave we were going to leave custodians in charge of everything until we woke up. However, the other half of the family didn't want those custodians based on the fact of the low moral fiber that they exhibited upon their incarnation here. So that created a giant rift between our families that was polarized between those people who were following, let's say, the red half, and then those following, let's say, the blue half. And to this day, red and blue politics dominate Western society because anybody that is for, let's say, the red side of the planet, the red side of the family, was basically representative of those people who never wanted to be raised up to the level of civilization, or to the level of civilized barbarity. You know what I mean? Barbarity. And then the other half of the family were tired of the super ancient, were tired of the fact that the empire was now decaying, you know, and once it became stagnant, slavery became the way to sustain it. So being that the Caucasoid slaves were the ones who were enslaved, let's say, global commodity en masse, that side of the family began to start to take them and free them and accept them into their homes and to their noble houses as what today we would call free and accepted Masons. And these free and accepted Masons basically were also in history known as the Christian mercenaries or crusaders, who basically fought to abolish the Moorish dominion over the entire world. And then in the process of that, they worked with those Moors who raised them up in those families to do that. So once those Moors and those white Freemasons won, those white Freemasons were now able to become royal and have slaves of their own. But instead of them enslaving their own people, they decided to enslave the Moorish Masons who put them in a position in the first place. You know what I'm saying? And it just deteriorated from there. And now here we are.
Because
2010 now we're about to come back up. And the opposite.
Oh yes. There definitely seems to be a quantum deception taking place on the planet. And it's just amazing how many people are still under universal mind control. But one thing I found fascinating was that Europe being in the Dark Ages, what sparked the birth of the Renaissance was the Moors in Spain, the Moors in Salamanca, the Moors in that kind of area really showed a lot of things to the people there. And one interesting thing I found was that they even showed them the use of fire sticks or gunpowder. And, when I was connecting the dots, when we look at modern civilization, I call it the fall of Rome because, the ship has already hit the iceberg. But if we look at the weaponry, that's in use, the technology, do you feel that's a kind of karma in terms of, because the Moors taught them about the art of war almost, to use it against them?
My take on karma specifically is a little different than some other people in the church, because to me, there really is only dharma, which is, I guess, the opposite of karma, which is the wheel, right? If we ever seen the dharma wheel, right, and you look at a ship's wheel or the wheel that the Moors would use to navigate the seven seas, it's the same wheel. You know what I mean? It's the navigation wheel that you put in to, let's say, guide a ship through the waters of the planet. So essentially, the Dharma wheel, when the Moors were navigating throughout the planet, that essentially is why they were able to be so successful, because they basically used oceans like rivers and lakes. You know what I'm saying? So, like, that whole term, like I said earlier, when you have an ocean, you look at it as a pond. It's about the perception and the difference in how, let's say, an immortal being looks at things and how a finite being looks at things. So, with the gunpowder and stuff like that, we use weapons as a means to maintain empire. You know what I'm saying? The enemy began to use weapons as a means to tear empires down and set up fictitious ones. You know what I'm saying? So we have huge epochs in our time, in our history, in which we fought no wars with each other. Everything was peace and blah, blah, blah. There's never been a time in its history that it has never been fighting against someone, especially itself. You know what I'm saying? So,
right.
Like when we talk about Moorish or natural history, under the Moors, let's say in Granada, even in Europa, you know what I'm saying, to keep it real too, even in Europa, never before in history had there ever been a society in which you had so-called the big three, Muslims, Christians, and Jews living under the same place at the same time, basically in harmony. You know what I'm saying? So long as everybody paid their tithe to the Caliph, you know, the Caliph, you can worship and do what you want. And that premise of liberty, you know what I'm saying, and social freedom was copied, or I should say was emulated by their Moorish brothers and sisters that was over here in so-called the New World, you know what I'm saying? So it really wasn't until the offset of us really falling asleep, let's say between 1495 and then, let's say, 1666, and then let's say from 1666 to 1776. That was a huge, that basically was like our, like, worst, if you could believe it. That was like our lowest moments, you know what I mean? Because we were literally falling asleep to who and what we were, you know what I mean, or are. And then in the process of that, those of us that could remember, instead of trying to maintain that society, we would bounce, you know, and go to different places where brothers and sisters was still semi-awake. And these became some of the last hold-up places in which we would try to hold on and maintain the what was left of the empire, you know. So real quick, karma to me is like justice without the revenge, you know what I'm saying? But we should never base our daily interactions based upon what we feel might happen to us if we don't do something. And that's the problem with karma. It makes you feel like you got to be a good person, because if not, this will happen to you, which again is another form of
right. Oh, definitely. When we just had the World Cup in South Africa, and when I was doing the research a long time ago about Africa, and that it was actually a Roman province called Africa Proconsular. Forgot the whole name of it, but it was a Roman province, and I think at 146 BC. And, you know, that just made me think, you know, is Africa still controlled by Rome? Because we've had the Berlin Conference where, you know, Africa was divided. And, you know, a lot of people say I'm an African, or I'm from this country, and Africa, I'm from that country, not realizing that it was all done by design. And, you know, I found that fascinating, you know, because, you know, people are so quick to claim their nationality of a particular country, not realizing that that's their enslavement.
Yeah, that's pretty much. We come from a people who set up things like empires, kingdoms, and dominions, and then after 1945, all of that got switched up for countries, nations, and states. You know what I'm saying? But the term state in law is equivalent to the term prince. So if you live in a state, live under the state of the prince. See what I'm saying? So the prince is basically the heir apparent to the throne. So like in your case in England, where these people are, okay, the royal family there, the Windsors are not Windsors, you know what I mean? They're actually Coburg-Saxe-Gothas. But even that, they're not even that, because the Coburg-Saxe-Gothas, prior to them changing their name to Windsors, were very dark-skinned people prior to 1945. But World War I and World War II was all about destroying all of the Moorish and original nobilities that existed in Europa up until that point. And then after that, that's when all of those royal families started getting, amalgamated or whitewashed, and they started being changed all around. The same way that we take an obelisk from Egypt and bring it over here, and then bring a obelisk from over here and bring it over to Egypt, they would do the same thing now. But instead of using obelisk, they was using the Caucasoid members of the first family to integrate into Moorish, the first, let's say, Caucasian slave family to marry into Moorish nobility in Europa was a house called the House of Wettin, Wettin, and that was based upon the old dukes of Bavaria, the Moors, black people. The king, I believe his name, I think it was Henry II or whatever. But regardless of what, he was a jet black man, jet black Moor, whatever. But the Bavarians were responsible for what they call the Holy Roman Empire, right? Which created, or which allowed the Roman state to manifest itself. So once the Roman state got out of control, the Holy Roman Empire sent they Moorish brothers and sisters today that we would today call the Mystic Turks to go in there and shut Rome down, and that's what happened. But so in history, when they tell you that Rome was shut down by the wild Germanian tribes, that's true to a degree. However, if you don't know that the ancient Germanian tribes or the ancient tribes of Bavaria were these original black people who had Moorish brothers and sisters, Muslim brothers and sister cousins who had Germanic Neanderthal type slaves that they would use to just let's say run through an area and just what they call raise it. You know what I'm saying? Then you would think that they're talking about all Caucasian people. You know what I'm saying? And
because
as much as it's not about race, as much as it's not about race, it is. You know what I'm saying?
Right. No, definitely. I mean, I was just timing in on what you were saying, because there has been black nobility, which is, a lot of people that do the research should be aware of that. Even in Europe's royal family, you had a black Queen Charlotte. Grandmother
she was over here
Victoria.
Too. That's why you got Charlotte in North Carolina from out here now. The white Freemasons out here was real upset when they put up a statue of her and they made it bronze. Anytime you see statues in England or anywhere else, and it could look like a white person, but if the statue itself is brown or bronze or black, that means that the person who they made it was black or brown or bronze too. That's a Masonic code as well. They'll make you look European, but they'll make sure that the statue is the color of the original person who they're doing the statue of, Right,
because even Europa is a Phoenician goddess in London.
Right.
I just had found out that was a name given by the Romans, Londinia, which meant Temple of Isis. And then, it's very interesting how, we're told that Greek is a civilization, is responsible for modern civilization. However, when you start connecting the dots, once I found out, was that they had plagiarized from the Achaemenid or Egyptian deities, and the Romans copied from them. So, it's very interesting how, once you start connecting the dots, but, talk about, how we've been left, how this grand deception has been able to come into effect, because it is a marvelous, intricate design that keeps people dumbed down in a comatose state.
It's really like in my research of it all, and I started really just, you know, it gets to a point where you research something, you can almost research it to death, to the point where it's not alive anymore what you're researching, and that's when you got to kind of throw your hands up and give it up to the Creator and be like, look, show me what I'm not seeing in this stuff. And the minute I did that, you know, I was able to step back and be more objective about what was going on and realize that it's really about the questions that we ask is what keeps us locked down in this fictitious state. You know, like in America, you hear brothers and sisters tell you that, you know, they've been in bondage for 400 years, 500 years, and all this other shit. But America's only 229 years old, so I don't know how you could be in bondage longer than the country existed. You know what I'm saying? And to keep it real, there really is no such thing as the United States or America, because it was all incorporated by the British East India Company anyway, under the term the Virginia Tobacco Company. So really, that's the name of the United States to this day. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what they incorporated in. But because we don't know, like they say that Americans say they fought a revolutionary war, right? To break away from England, right? But the term revolution means to get back to. So I don't know how they could be breaking away from things and they're getting back to it at the same time. See what I'm saying? These are little things, like I said, in terms of questions that when you start to really ask certain people that are in academia who are teaching this bullshit to people, you can begin to see them start to squirm and stuff, and you can see that there's something that's going on. What's really going on is the fact that what we call Western society is actually a modern version of the Yaqoobian experiment, right? And for those people that don't know what the Yaqoobian experiment is, the Yaqoobian experiment was about the incarnation of malefic entities and the ability to allow them to be raised up socially in the experiment to see if we could rise above them. So way before what we today will call Caucasian people incarnated here, we existed in a sense of, I don't want to say bliss, but we were in, let's say, a super conscious state of mind. So things like morality, good and evil, none of that stuff really was relevant to us. Because as a race of explorers and scientists and artists and all that other stuff, our whole thing is about experiencing physical reality to give that experience through our souls back to the Creator, right?
Right.
So there came a time, though, when it was said through what people call the Typhonian prophecies, which are prophecies that go back to pre-dynastic Yemen, that we would go through a state of I guess amnesia is the way to say it, or what they would call the Great Sleep, or we would travel into what the Bible calls the land of Nod, right? That's why, like, when you fall asleep, they say you're nodding off. So essentially, we knew that was going to happen. So those of us who saw that coming down the pipe began to leave the societies that we was in. And once those high priest people began to leave those societies, they would go and set up other societies in other places. Now, before we left, we would set up, we would start to build pyramids and stuff like that as reminders for those of us who live today as to the greatness that we would have. Because prior to that, we didn't need to build pyramids and all of that because we were the pyramid. You know what I'm saying? We are the physical temple. We are the embodiment. We could look at Venus and go, you know what I mean, as opposed to building a spaceship and having to go there. We could instantaneously travel like that. But the longer we became physical, the more the non-physical aspect of ourselves began to slow down and lose its vibratorial frequency. So the more time we began to spend to prepare this place, to get this place more like to make it more beautiful than we was making, than beautifying ourselves, the more the sleep began to rush in. You know what I'm saying? So by the time, let's say, the last pyramid of Giza was finished, the society as we knew it was over. You know what I mean? Even though there was maybe another 2,500 years, let's say 2,000 years, for the society to continue up into what they call the New Kingdom, right? And that's just in Kemet. But what I'm saying about the Yaqoob thing is that the Yaqoob experiment was a generational experiment that lasted from the first inception of it. So it came through many different terms, like the term of the Reconquista, Spanish Inquisition, the Renaissance, the American Revolution, the Bolshevik. All of these are different versions of the same program. You see what I'm saying? It's just that we forgot that the lab rats that we was experimenting on in the program are now running the laboratory. You see what I'm saying? So essentially, we began to lose when we began to slow our vibration down, in a sense, to start to have to do things like speak physically, like show the Neanderthal people that there was another way for them to live. You know what I mean? Give them a language, give them a culture, give them civilization through symbology and stuff. By the time we did all of that, what beauty and things we could add on to our own society or the world that existed before they got here was already done. You know what I'm saying? So now once the Caucasoid came in, rules and statutes and protocols had to be created in order to keep it from destroying all of society. So in ancient times, we have what we call the Codes of Hammurabi. You heard of those, right?
Right.
Hello? Yeah, you heard the Codes of Hammurabi. Yeah, he was a bey. Okay. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So these were different ways of commerce that we were enacting through the ancient societies, going all the way up to modern society, to learn how to deal with barbarians living amongst us. You know what I'm saying? But now it's to the point where we, in a sense, have become the barbarians because we have totally forgotten the true origin of ourselves. So we damn sure forgot how they got here. You know what I mean?
Right. Is there a separation, or is race, is it a real thing, or is it just an illusion? Because I think when we look at the programs in place in the superstructure, some people call it the matrix, we see that there are a lot of programs which are designed to keep original people separated.
Yes.
Human beings in general separated. And it works because, as long as people identify with the nationality, there's always going to be war because there's always going to be something to defend. There's always going to be something to attack. So, would you? How do you look at race? Is it? Yeah. Please.
You're right. You're absolutely correct about that. The only thing I would add to that is that the way that governments work essentially is how they've always worked. You know what I mean? God created man, man created government. So government could never really rule over man. Government is just a tool of man to rule over other men. See what I'm saying? So essentially, there is only one thing.
I always say govern men. Sorry, just to time in. I always say govern men. It's in the word anyway.
Govern men, right? Because it's supposed to govern the men. You know what I mean? And essentially, that means, but you see, it's like, when the Creator created everything, the Creator didn't ask for nothing in return. You know what I'm saying? Like, God is the only thing in the universe that don't ask for nothing, but has everything. You dig? So it actualizes itself when God is realized in man, man realizes God when God realizes man. So in that, these structural systems that created government were basically started to create as a means to deal with the universal amnesia, or what I call the age virus, in which we as immortal people began to fall asleep to the immortal aspect of ourselves. And what began to happen is that the pineal gland began to house different aspects of your consciousness and into the superconsciousness of the individual. So that way, when the season passed, things would happen to trigger, and it would come back online, and then we could fall back into that immortality. But when people talk about Western society, they usually think about the Greeks, but to keep it real with you, they didn't become Greeks. That word Greek didn't become a word until really after 1945. Because prior to that, that's not like the word Byzantium. You know, describing the Eastern Roman Empire. That's not what them people was called. Them people, that empire was called Pelagia, or the Pelagian, or the Pelagius. You know what I'm saying? Or the Pelagian, right? And these were light-skinned black people. These was like light-skinned black Ethiopians. You know what I'm saying? They that was kind of like mixed with some of the darker-skinned Turks. Because at the time, even back then, Turks was mad dark-skinned. All of the whole thing about light skin being the shit, all of that stuff started after the Civil War. So you're talking about from 1865 to about 1899 was about the time when the whole color caste system thing had to come into being. Because this was also the time, symbolically and coincidentally, when Britain took over India, which was part of the ritual too. Because remember, the Hindu people are phenotypically and anthropologically Caucasian people. They are the archetype of what Caucasus Asians are. So if they are the original Caucasians, who are these so-called white people then? You know what I'm saying? They don't have no name. They don't have no designation. You see? So anything that does not have an original designation has to be parasitic and then adopt or shapeshift and become something else. So when they was able to take over India, that's when they took the Caucasian appellation for themselves and then made the real Caucasians, who are the Hindus or the Indians, the Hindus, Indians. Because that place is called Hindustan. That's not India. You know what I'm saying? That place has only been India for the past, since Gandhi. But again, global history, as we understand it, history as we understand it is rewritten by Western society every 5.5, 6 years. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So like me and you, we remember Tiananmen Square. You remember that, right? When the whole Chinese Revolution, right? People in China don't even know what that shit is. They don't remember that stuff. The Chinese government washed that out of people's minds like maybe 3 years after the event. So if you even try to Google that, if you're in China and try to Google the Tiananmen Square riot in 1991, that shit won't even come up on Google.
Right, because there's something called information period doubling, and we just see that the rate of information on the planet is it's increasing so much now that it's just becoming overwhelming. Turn on your computer and you realize that there's just so much information, but at the same time it's so overwhelming because it's just too much. And you were talking about how the pantheons from Greece originated in Egypt, Kemet. And, when we look at mythology, because I always feel that, the role of mythology in modern culture is, everything is mythology, even history. That's how I feel about it.
Yes, it is.
When we look at, the role of mythology, all of these stories, it's very interesting to see how, when I was finding out Zeus, was his chief title was Ethiops, which meant burnt face.
That's right.
And
black. That's why you always see him with a beard.
Right. We see Heru, who is Horus, who is we see that Hercules in the Roman, in that culture, in the Greek culture. And it's very interesting to see these correlations. But we're living in the age of distraction. So. Is very for a lot of us, who are too busy trying to work that 9 to 5. It's very difficult to walk this tightrope because everyone is so-called busy, in a hurry to get nowhere fast. But it's very interesting mythology how it keeps coming back. These films, they're all about mythology. I mean, right?
Because all stories are the same Every story that has ever been written is the same story. It's what? There's a little boy, a little girl who grew up somewhere. They're really insecure. There's friends that they have. They're really nice, but either their parents are fucked up or the environment that they're in is fucked up. And then all of a sudden something happens and they have to go within to find out what really happened to themselves. And then in that, they get to another part where they realize that they're more than what they thought they were based on their historical relevance. And then once they find historical relevance, they find either a woman or a man that helps them on the way. And then once they reach that level, they have to fight against the people who are trying to stop them from figuring out who they really are. And then once they get to that point and stop them, the guy and the girl get together and they walk off into the sunset. Every story is about that. You know what I'm saying? So that is the story of what? Asar, Aset, Heru, right? So whether Asar, Aset, Heru is Mary, Jesus, and Joseph, or Zeus, Hera, Hercules, or Zoroaster, or Mithra, or Manichi, or Perseus, or Zarabanda, or a Cristo Negro, or Buddha, or anybody else, it's always the same guy, because the same story, because really it's an allegorical story about us. Because this is why we never had to write those stories down. We would just tell one story, and that story would travel, and everybody would basically take it. So in Kemet, Asar is Asar, you know. In Sumer or Elam, he was Nimrod. You know what I'm saying? In Indo-Kush or whatever, he was Krishna. In the Tamorankhan culture, Olmec culture, he was one of the hero twins. You know what I'm saying? It's always the same people, because what we do, we build up a society, you know, we expound upon that society as deep as we can, and then once we know that that society is about to go in decline, we bounce. So we usually create a race of people, you know what I'm saying? And then when we bounce, the people who move into the ruins of the city that we bounce from, we become the gods in the mythology of those people. That's why every society in the world got a story, and all their gods is black except Western Christianity. And their God is black too. He's just failed in allegory and secrecy. You know what I mean? That's the problem with our people, is the fact that we are always thinking that we are the bottom of the barrel, when if you didn't have a bottom, you'd have no top. You know what I mean? We're the base, or what they call the fulcrum, which is the strength at the base of the pillar. We are the foundation of all. You know what I mean? And not just people from Africa, because we were here before there was even land to call that place that. We were here not only when all of the continents were together, we were here when all of the continents was underwater. We was here when there was no water on the planet, when it was fire and shit. Like, there's never been a point that
when time never existed.
Exactly. We were here when time, exactly, brother. When time never existed, we were here with watches, right? There's never been a time. So in that, what Western society did was, like, even when we say Greeks, before there was Greeks, there was Etruscans. Before the Etruscans, there was the Etruscans, then there was the Minoans, right? And then the Minoans brought forth the Cretians, and then the Cretians, again, this is getting to the Yaqoob thing, because some of the experiment went on over there. The questions, then we got into what we call the Peloponnesians, and then from the Peloponnesians, we go all the way up into modern history now to, you know, the last part in which now people call themselves Greek. But Greek people, Armenian people, Kurdish people, Arabic people, Indian people, Irish people, Russian people, none of these people were considered white until after 1945. You know what I mean? There's a book people can get called How the Irish Became White. Great book. And it basically gets into the fact that in order for them to build this society with the eugenics programs and the white supremacy and all this other shit, they had to create a caste system in which they would take the term white and apply it to themselves. But the term white that they used to be was spelled W-I-G-H-T. We, original people, were white like W-H-I-T-E. So W-H-I-T-E, white, means one that is pure in intent and purpose. W-I-G-H-T, white, means one that is under the punishment of death and imprisonment based upon their sullen character. So in case in point, in England, you have a place called the Isle of Wight, right?
Right.
You have a place called the Isle of Wight out there where we used to bring a lot of these Caucasian slaves over there to sell them over there. You know what I mean? That was one of the main places we used to bring them to do the commerce thing before we would let them in. So, like, let's say if you would bag them off the coast of Ireland or wherever else you would get them, you would bring them to the Isle of Wight, and then that's where the ransom and stuff would go down. You see what I'm saying?
Right. It seems
and
like
that part of the history has been washed out.
Right. I mean, it definitely seems like, I mean, I always say this whole world is a giant plantation, and you know, everyone is a slave. You know, with the slave.
Everybody on a slave colony for Earth.
Right. I mean, I often feel that, you know, when we pierce the veil and we see the intangible, there is a hidden hand which is manipulating what we see as human beings. You know, we feel they're running it, but there's almost another force there, you know, which is enslaving everyone. You know, you know, it's very, very, very deep, you know, because who we think is our enemy, you know, we haven't even seen our enemy yet. You know, because
they come out yet. Not the real, the realest enemy, the truest enemy is always ourselves, first.
That's right.
Nobody can control your mind if you control your mind. You know what I mean? And this is what I mean about the trickery, though. Like when Alexander the Great, okay, you heard the term lady, right? L-A-D-Y?
Right.
The term lady, when you say that you're a lady, the term lady actually comes from a woman whose name was Lady, a black woman who was a Candace, meaning a Candace, which is another name for queen, or one of the queens of Sheba. And she ran Nubia. Now, when Alexander the Great did all he did in Babylon or whatever, he was marching towards Nubia. But Lady had never lost a battle, so she was waiting for the name. You know what I mean? On a gold throne with peacock feathers and everything that was right on top of this hill. So when Alexander the Great's forces was coming over this hill, all he seen was her sitting on this gold throne, glistening in the sky, as the story goes, right? So he's like, okay, I got this. Soon as he reached the top of the hill, when he looked down in the valley, the whole valley was nothing but black faces with 6 gold spears on elephants ready to get it in on this thing. This nigga turned around and never came back.
Right,
you know what I mean? Because he had won up until the point that he was about to go step to the lady. But because Queen Lady never won, he knew if he lost to her, the whole thing would be done. So from that point on, he realized that he could not win with the strategy that he was doing. So what he decided to do, he consulted the priest, and the priest basically went and said, yo, what we could do is, being that these people don't fear death, that's why we're losing. We got to make them believe that they can die. Because if we can make them believe they can die, then we can rule them. So they create this concept called Hellenism, right, in which they invent hell. The concept that if you don't do right here, you'll go to hell. And they convinced original people of that. And then once original people started believing that they could die, they started to. You see? So the same shit really is going on now. You have original people. Now, this process, right, is actually based on a cellular process called apoptosis. And apoptosis is programmed cellular death. So what they have done, based on the premise of Hellenism in our modern time, has basically all been procuring the human population to destroy or kill enough of them to the point that they inflict so much trauma in the species mind pattern of human beings that the gene, that the apoptosis gene can basically come online and people will begin to kill themselves. This is where you get suicide bombers from. This is where you get people killing themselves based on them getting bullied. This is where you get people killing themselves based upon what somebody told them, shit like that, post-hypnotic suggestion. All of this is the apoptosis gene run rampant now. You know what I'm saying? So now you get people through trauma, because what happens is through the trauma-based program, what they found is that melanin under stress is psychoreactive. But what happens is the melanin now, let's say if you're in a situation and you're in a traumatic experience that's so traumatic that you go catatonic. What makes you catatonic is whatever happens to you trauma-wise messes with you mentally so much that the serotonin levels in your active life, in your how much serotonin you secrete in a given day, reduces itself to below 30%. When that happens, the apoptosis gene is much more likely to be triggered. You see what I'm saying? Based on the fact that serotonin, which is a natural, let's say, inhibitor, because that's what helps you sleep as well. Serotonin is a derivative of melatonin. So once that level falls, they can put in a carrier wave, which again is a post-hypnotic suggestion, subliminal program, forceful program, that makes you feel that the only way out is to take yourself out. Now, they have been developing this for a long time. Remember when we would watch movies from Japan and they would talk about seppuku or what they used to call harikari, where you kill yourself if you don't do what you're supposed to do?
Right.
This is all examples of the type of person or the type of gene that they have been working to procure out of the global population. They want to reduce the population to 500 million, but all those 500 million have the apoptosis gene in the forefront. So if anybody do anything wrong, they could just click it off and that person can take themselves out.
I call it unconscious suicide because
yes, that's exactly what it is.
We participate in unconscious suicide. You might have the alcoholic who is drinking himself to death, but at the same time he's just not drinking enough to tip himself over. But at the same time,
that's exactly what it is, bro.
In unconscious suicide. We're live on Infinite Waters. You've got the chat room full, and really you've just made it silent. Here, we've got a question. Did he mean melanin or myelin? I'm not sure. Melanin, I think. That's the only one I've heard.
Melanin. I meant melanin. Melanin, even as what we understand melanin to be, as let's say that's the dark pigmentation, the cosmic molecular stuff. Technically, that doesn't even exist. In the sense that the term melanin is a modern term. You know what I mean? An ancient term for melanin is Anubis. Because whatever you see, because Anubis is a physical representation of melanin. So whatever you see him doing in the picture is what your melanin is doing for you. And then usually when you see pictures of Anubis, what is he doing? He's embalming somebody, right? He's leading somebody by the hand, taking them into the amenta, right? Which is, again, what melanin basically is doing. And because it's a cosmic polymer, it's something that is psychoreactive and alive. But we don't treat it like that. We treat it like it's skin. You see what I'm saying? But the cracker, he's trying to find ways to amalgamate it into itself so he can see the hereafter and come back as an Obama-type person with the mind of a white supremacist. Because this is the fruition of the Yaqoobian experiment. It wasn't about creating Caucasian white people. It wasn't about that. It was about making the Caucasoid phenotype, the phenotype that black people and original people with melanin want to associate themselves as. And it's working.
Mm. Oh, definitely. I mean, there's so much deception happening, and really the state that we're living in, isn't healthy because many people are sick. Many people are in need of rejuvenation in all their cells.
Yeah, man.
But we were talking about melanin and something. When I look at a computer, a lot of us, we've actually made this computer our reality, and the original human is becoming integrated with the computer.
Right.
And the computer is becoming more human, and we look at what's inside a computer. Silicon. It's a mineral also found in the hair. And one observation I've found is that a lot of people love to cut their hair off.
Right.
And that might be an antenna. Because it contains. It's just amazing. Because silicon in the computer helps it remember. That's where it has the memory.
That's right.
But it's
that's
just very interesting how. Right.
Anytime you try to create, not to cut you, but anytime you create a system in which you are the original, remember, we are the archetype of all human beings. So that means all human beings, what makes them dope, or what makes them what they are, is us. They all come out of us. That's why we have the blood type of everybody else in the world in us. That's why if you dress up like anybody from any cultural place, from anywhere in the world, you look like you come from that place. You know what I'm saying? It ain't a costume when you wear it. Mm-hmm. So when you, as the archetype of humanity, begin to mold your reality and your archetype to look like something else that came after you, what you are basically telling your melanin in your pineal gland, your hypothalamus pituitary, is that you don't want to be that archetype of the creator no more. So what happens is, melanin being psychoreactive, it begins to slow its vibrational frequency down within you enough to attract the opposite archetype, so that way you can hit with that. That's why when you see black people and they get involved in relationships, marriages, or whatever with Caucasian people, specifically Caucasian people, when they're around black people, it's like they can't even look at no black people no more. They don't know how to interact with them. They don't know how to do nothing. All they know is that I'm married to this white person now, and there's a part of them that they always look like they shame. I don't know if it's just me, but I'll be peeping it. You know what I'm saying? It's like you get with this white boy, you get with this white girl, and it seems like when you're around black people now, you just can't really just be down. Like you can't deal with them the same way you was before. Because now it seems whenever I see situations like that, black folk conform to be what they think white folk want them to be in situations like that. But you don't know genetically who this white man is, who this white woman is. You don't know genetically. Like, there's things about white folk that black folk just don't understand, that just don't know. Like, the hypothalamus in Caucasian males shuts down at 8 years old. You understand? By 8 years old, their hypothalamus is totally calcified. That means the hypothalamus is the part that helps you deal with things like compassion and love and spirituality, shit like that. You know what I'm saying? So if that shuts down when they're 8 years old, why do you think these people be out there turning parents and cutting they families up and shit like that? You know what I mean?
Well, we often talk on the show that, we're living in a sadomasochistic society, one on the verge of destruction. We're almost at the edge.
Civilization is civilized barbarity, man. That's what it is.
Right.
This is modern world. And I don't even... And to keep it real, because I know there's a lot of Caucasian people listening too, I don't want to put it out there like I hate Caucasian people. Because even though I know about Yaqoob and all this other type of stuff or whatever, the only people that ever have anything negative to say about what I'm saying is black folk. White folk know what they are. You know what I'm saying? Everybody else kind of know what they are. Our main problem right now is our own people. Because half of us, just like the old experiment, like I said, we have not successfully negotiated the lessons of the past. So the same motherfuckers that's getting on your nerves right now and is making obstacles for you in your life It's the same motherfuckers that was doing the same thing in pre-dynastic Kemet, in post-dynastic Kemet, in ancient Sumeria, in ancient Mesopotamia, in ancient Asia Minor. It's the same people. Because remember, we're immortal people, so it's not like you die and you don't see the person again. You know what I'm saying? Like that's not how it works.
Right. Right.
We're
live on Infinite Waters. I just want to say quickly, if you want to call in,
please, go ahead, man.
Don't hesitate to. Number is 347-850-8713. The chat room is full, and we've got a caller on the line. But press 1 if you want to ask a question. But yeah, I mean, definitely, because we had said something before, and on this show, I do a show called The Empowered Human 360 Senses. And for me, I've always realized that, we all feel that we're heroes of our story, of our mythic narrative. But at the same time, we must become the villains of our story. Because once you become the villain of your own story, you've got no one to blame. And I definitely feel that the victim program is definitely in full swing, and that many people are fighting something. But whatever you fight, you give power to. Resistance makes stronger. So it's very interesting to see a lot of people have this aggression, but at the same time, they don't realize they're fueling their enemy. Their so-called seed enemy. But once you're your own enemy, then you realize that, you become the villain and the hero.
That's right. You're either the hero long enough to become the villain, or you're the villain who realizes that he really was a hero. And everybody loves the anti-hero. That's why in the Westerns they would make movies like Good Guys Wear Black and all that shit. At the same time, they lynching black people all over the country. Because you have to understand that the enemy practices a form of magic called inversion or Transengothian magic, and that's all about taking the up and making it look down, and taking it down, making it look up. So if you want to die, he'll keep you alive. If you want to stay alive, he'll kill you. You see what I'm saying? If you're hungry, he'll starve you. If you don't want to eat, he'll force you to eat. You see what I'm saying? If you're tired, he keeps you up. If you want to stay up, he puts you to sleep. You see? It's always in a state of flux is where we are. So really, we're not even in what we consider time, or what we consider Earth or whatever. We have already made it to the other side of the state. This whole 2012 season thing and all that, we don't already transverse the distance in that. The telemetry in that has already been transversed. So we are already on the other side of this dark rift now, living a life, traveling the stars, doing whatever we're doing. And we're almost talking about ourselves like, yo, remember when we used to be human and we used to live on that small planet and we used to have to go through that shit with them crackers or whatever? It's so ill that, we're doing it. That memory of us talking about it is where we are right now. We are talking about ourselves in our memories in the future somewhere. So those of us that are conscious now are those of us that are going to write what consciousness is for the next however many millions of years. But the only way you can do that is by accepting the fact that we are spiritual beings having a human experience and not human beings having a spiritual experience. It's the difference between Rome, Vatican, and Freesing, Bavaria, Vatican. You know what I mean? Freesing, Bavaria, Vatican is the logo that's on the Pope's planes and shit with the black Moor's head on it. You know what I'm talking about? That's the real Vatican. That was the initial shit under the Holy Roman Empire of the Moors that made it possible for the so-called Roman state Vatican to exist. So our problem is we make so much. We always want credit for shit we're supposed to do. You know what I mean? Like, we're supposed to be conscious. It's not an anomaly. You know what I mean? So like we're supposed to have money, and I don't mean Federal Reserve notes or debt notes or euros. I'm talking about spiritual currency. The Creator, remember, the Creator paid for everything, and then Yehoshua came through and then and then paid the interest with His blood, right? So based on that, the only real kingdom that exists is the kingdom of the Creator, the kingdom of God. So that means that in that kingdom, a trust was set up for me, right, in God, so that way I can do what I need to do here. So in that now, when you have things like, let's say, birth certificates, right, that are evidence of a historic event, not the birth of a person, then really what we're talking about is a world that was set up on top of the natural one to set up people who know they're not God to almost act as that. So if the Bible says we lead the wicked to iniquity, to the bowels of hell, and shackles into the hellfire, what the cracker got to do is he got to sit on a judge and act like God and then convict somebody so that way they could put physical shackles on this guy and put him or her into a place that is called hell that we call jail. You see what I'm saying? So everything that we naturally are, these malefic entities have to create something physically in the world to mimic that. You see?
Right.
So again, we dictate our own ascendancy or de-evolution based upon what we perceive ourselves as and what we project outward.
We got a comment from the chat room from Fiona L saying if you listen to Dr. Pookrum, she'll tell you there's only one race, human. So-called white race just lost their pigmentation.
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree with that to an extent in the sense that I'm more akin, or I have more affinity to the word man than human, me personally. But when I say man, I talk about man and woman. You know what I'm saying? Because humanity is man's culture. You see what I'm saying? But man is culture within itself. You know what I'm saying? So, yes, we all have the same, we all came out of a black woman, right? Yet that black woman, in order for her, it's not like she atypically created the universe out of her womb by herself. Because if that was the case, then she'd still be doing that now. She was initiated before she became physical, right, by the black man in the form of dark energy. So dark energy would be represented as a black man. Dark matter would be represented as a black woman. The culmination of them coming together is what allowed creation to exist. So when all of these races started coming out of us, right, by the time the cracker, or what we today call what I call the cracker, because he cracks the unity. When they come out, there was no melanin left for them. You see what I'm saying? But before they incarnated, before there was anybody called Mexicans, before there was anybody called Indians or any of that, we were still here like this. You dig what I'm saying? So I don't know how these things could come out of us. I can understand how they could be grafted out of us. You see what I'm saying? Through birth control programs and things like that. But I don't know. But to say that we genetically are the same as them is not true. And the way that you can, and just to claim that just to make them feel included into the human family is lying to them. You know what I'm saying? They are not the same. Their sleep-wake cycle is 29 hours. Your sleep-wake cycle is 24 hours. That means that there's about 4.5 hours in the day and night where these people are not asleep or awake. You understand what I'm saying? So there's times when you are walking and talking to them, and you're not talking to them. They're asleep. You're talking to something else. You know what I'm saying? Like, keep it real.
We also, just, tying that in, because, we talk about sovereignty and, we talk about law. And one interesting thing I found out was that when we use the word person, persona, that's just a mask. When we call
that's right, a mask. It's not real.
And, it's very interesting because, when we look at theater and the role of film, if we look at what a persona is, a person does, in Greek theater, you had someone basically in a mask in the theater,
right.
and basically they would have a mask and they'll switch roles, switch masks to project their voice by a megaphone shaped like in a mouth kind of shape, and that's why persona is by sound. So it's very interesting that, a lot of us, when we talk about personality, is that our projection to others just to conceal our authenticity. And,
yes.
call this person, that person. It's very, very interesting how, once again, we are living in a huge deception.
It's that's so aptly put, brother. That's exactly what I'm saying. Like, for instance, like we're more, so we deal with the zodiacists, right? Or what people would call the zodiac. Great. Yet, the sidereal astrology, right? And then they have Vedic astrology, right? But both of those systems are based on a 12-sign cycle, right? But when you really do the knowledge, there's actually 13 signs. There's a sign between Scorpio and Sagittarius that some people call Ophiuchus, right? Ophiuchus, which is seen as a man holding a feathered serpent. Now, the feathered serpent goes back to the Kundalini Shakti, and that brings you back over here to the Tawankan, a.k.a. Olmec people, in the story of Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent. That also, like I said, talks about the Kundalini Shakti. So, if we was to, let's say, add in the 13th sign, right, and make that a thing, that means that everybody else got to recalibrate their signs too. Because see, a 12-month cycle puts you in a 365.25 days. 13-sign cycle puts you in exactly 28 days in every month with 13 moons. See what I'm saying? So that is putting you into a space they call, that some occultists call the new sphere, Noosphere. And that puts you back under what they call natural time, or the natural procession of equinox. So let's say, boom, if those people who are born in December, they believe that they're Sagittarius, right? But in a 13 moon sign, Sagittarius basically starts at the end of December. Let's say from December 19th to January 20th, you would then be that. So really what I'm saying is that you have the zodiac sign based on the perceived zodiac procession as it is right now, right? So under that sign, I'm an Aries. But under a 13 moon sign, I would be a Pisces. You see what I'm saying? So that's what I mean about you having the real you, the natural living soul you, and then you have the straw person or the straw man you, or the real you and then the persona you, But what is going to happen now with the 2012 thing is that the 2012 thing is significant in the sense that the 13th sign will then have to be re-added back to Zodiac formally, openly, which then is going to throw off mad people. You see what I'm saying? Like right now, you have people walking around thinking that it's 25 hours in a day right now, and we're down to 15.3 hours in a day. So you have people that's still rushing around to try to fit 24 hours worth of shit in one day, in a day that's only 16 hours now. But the government ain't telling them that it's switched. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So in that's driving people crazy. That's one of the things driving people crazy. It seems like no matter how early you start the day, you can't get everything done. So what that does is it makes the cell have to generate that much faster, and it puts that much more stress and trauma in the everyday life of the individual. And then, God forbid, something real drastic happens, it creates, then what happens, the cell gets to a point of critical mass, it implodes itself, and then the apoptosis thing starts on a cellular level. And then like I said, as above, so below. Anything on the inside has to then be acted out physically. So on the inside, if the cell is killing itself, then physically on the outside, the body has to do the same thing. And that is where you get the term suicide from.
I always say that, it's all BS, it's all belief systems. And, when we look at, the great deception which has taken place, have a lot of people in institutions that basically keep them either in deeper bondage. Everyone is looking for a Messiah, someone to save them for security, but when something's secure, it can't move. And we can talk about the Council of Nicaea, but at the same time, it's people's insecurity. That's why these programs exist. What's your take on that?
Yeah, it's good you brought up the Council of Nicaea. That's real. That's real, brother, because the Council of Nicaea is very significant because that was the era in which the Caucasoid was finally recognized as human. Up until that point, Caucasian people were not seen as human beings. To show and prove that, because when the wild so-called Germanians, which were basically a maladaptive form of Neanderthal, basically started running through and grabbing people up, they was trickling out of the cave in what we now call the Dardanelles, as well as the ruddy track, what they call the ruddy tracks and hills of Normandy, which is now France or whatever. In all of these places, these things would come out, and we would talk about them the same way you would talk about seeing a Bigfoot or a werewolf or a vampire. This is where all these things started. You got white folk that still being born with tail, G. But the Council of Nicaea was significant because it was there that they needed to discuss. When they talk about, when you ask modern Caucasoid scholars, historians, they'll say that the whole thing was about to establish what the prerequisites to Christianity was going to be. But guess what? The word Eanity is an actual word that means lack of substance. Right? So Christ means the divine nature of man, and Eanity means lack of substance. That means that Christianity is the divine nature of man that lacks substance. And if we're establishing, if they were truly establishing the tenets of then Christianity, which again is the divine nature of a man who lacks substance, we're talking about something that is not human, something that is not real, something that has to be brought into the human family based upon based upon the fact that we were going through the age virus thing, and custodians these things needed to be put in some type of check before we totally lost sight of who and how they got here. So we decided, hey, well, let's allow them to create a God for themselves in their own image. Because up to that point, they all worship black men, black women in the form of Christ. That's what that whole story about St. Maurice is about, right? When he came up and he saw the wild Caucasians in the caves and they was worshiping black people, and then his black superior came and said that he had to kill them, and he was like, nah, I can't do that because they worship us. And then he was like, well, you're going to have to die if you don't do my order. And then he became a martyr for that. That's an example of one part of the family deciding that we need to help these animals. You see what I'm saying? And then the other side of the family is like, no, they are animals. You see? So this is when you read the tenets of the First Council of Nicaea. They were going through, you had a group of people called the Donatists, Donatists. And the Donatists were the first generation of people today we would call Jewish, descended from the first generation of Jewish people to come out of the cave. And they were used, and they were the scribes for the black Donatist priesthood that was deciding and was using them as an example to say, see, it can be done. These devils can be raised up and all of that shit. You know what I'm saying? And then they were like, cool. So a white image of Christ was created. This is the first time ever in history that a white image of a God was created in this effigy for these people, so that way they can identify and get some type of spirituality in form of religion. And this was also the birth of the Catholic Church. You know?
Well, you know, you're definitely going in, and a lot of information is, it's too much. A lot of people are talking in the chat room, but I think they're just they're not calling in. It's just people are just listening.
They're trying to localize it. I mean, because that's what I do.
Right.
I kind of just throw the little stuff out there.
Right. Not many people are coming from this angle that you're coming from. So I mean, a lot of the, it might be new to a lot of people.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Because
what it is.
Yeah.
Because what it is too is that I'm kicking it to the point where, like, I don't have no hate in my heart for nobody, for nothing, because I don't feel outside or negated by anything or anyone. So when I see a Caucasian person, even though I know the true origins of at least in my own research, my own understanding, my own physical applications of these effects, when I see them, I don't have to feel any way about them. I can be as cool and as everything as I want to be, because I ain't trying to be like them, with them, anything else. And they steal that from me. And in that, there's this inner knowing that white folk have. They be like, this nigga know what's going on. So let me not try to, be on some bullshit with him, because at least he knows. So Noble Joe Ali said, go to those who know law. And if you speak in a well-mannered, moderate tone, they are sure to give you a favorable opinion and a positive reply. And again, based on that, based on how I be kicking shit now, the biggest people that have problems with it, again, is original people, because I'm so about black people and so about original people and melanin and shit like that, that I don't feel threatened by anything or anybody else. So it's not that I, hate white people or don't like white people or hate black people that get with white people to that point or whatever. It's just that I care so much about my own cosmic molecular melanated people that I don't really give a damn about what anybody's doing. So in that, I don't have to feel like, oh, the cracker's going to come, New World Order is going to, I already know what these niggas are. So when that day comes, I know the Creator's going to put me in a position to be able to tell them, okay, nigga, take me back, take us to the vault, you know what I mean? Show us where everything is at. Show us where y'all been hiding every day. Because that day is going to come, because I've seen it in my own inner mind's eye, So I don't have to feel like these crackers got anything on me or these niggas or what I'm saying is some kind of crazy shit. Because in the end, they showing and proving what I'm saying themselves. My issue is our people. Because our people is something with our people that we've been so victimized, or felt that we've been so victimized by the slavery thing or whatever else they put on us, that there's almost a power that we feel in being an enslaved people. There's a certain anger and militancy that we feel that we got to have, you know what I'm saying, when it comes to dealing with white folk. And you can't be angry. You don't get angry like if it was like you, my brother. If you was walking down the street and you see a straight, like, retarded person, like drooling and all that, and he look at you and say, well, what you looking at, stupid? You ain't going to get upset. How you going to get upset at a retarded person calling you stupid? That's exactly what's going on right now with our people. We get so riled up by what this cracker say about us that anything he say, we be so ready to either attach ourselves to or be angry about or militant about. And half the time, that nigga be lying. Half the shit that nigga say he do be a straight lie. Come on, man. You mean to tell me that these crackers...
My new saying is that, we lay a bed of roses only to be pricked by the thorns. And when we look around, we see how we want comfort. A lot of people just want to be comfortable. People don't want to...
That's it. Man.
People are so busy, you want to watch television or the idiot box, but at the same time, by laying the bed of roses, you only get pricked by the thorns because it comes back to us eventually. But let's talk about music and sound frequency, because I know that you're a hip-hop artist, as well. And, you know, you've been, since the conception of hip-hop, you've been down with it. And, you know, on this Infinite Waters show, you know, we have so many different people coming on the show of all kinds of colors. And we had Black Dot, who wrote the book Hip Hop Decoded, but definitely talk to me about how music is being used to control and dumb down and keep people in a zombified, comatose, inorganic state.
Great question, brother. Between
Lil Wayne just put out a song saying, "I'm not a human being," you know.
Yeah, he got an album. That's the name of his album. I'm Not a Human Being.
Right.
And then he had another album, mixtape called Blue Martian, where they dressed him up like an Avatar character.
Right. His music is powerful. Definitely.
Music is a form of intangible melanin, because music operates to the higher octaves of the soul that gets reverberated through the ear canal, which is divinely in tune with the equilibrium of the body. The same auditory canal that the sound goes into is the same auditory canal that has that liquid in your ear that keeps you balanced. You know what I'm saying? So music, in a sense, is cosmic molecular melanin. And the way that you can see it is that it has turned the world black. How many white kids you be seeing now, they more black than you? You know what I'm saying? These niggas ain't never been in the ghetto, no nothing. These niggas know more about hip-hop, rap, all this other stuff than half of the brothers that's actually doing it. That's why you see right now you have this change in the guard in which now you have white folks that's working to become black folk and black folk that's trying to become white. So all the black folk is doing whack pop music, and all the white folk is doing hardcore hip-hop and shit. You know what I mean? Like, how could that happen? It's happened because they're trying to switch the debt and pass the debt on to us through the music. Because the music of hip-hop was the religion, is the new religion that hit the planet, or that they knew was going to hit the planet around the Plutonian years, which is around the 80s. So that's why they came out with crack and all of that in my neighborhood. Like, I literally remember and watched this thing become what it is, just like all of us. But I was, in a sense, at ground zero because I was in Brooklyn. You know what I mean? So I remember when I used to be out there with my little big dance crew called the Majestic Rockers on Union Street, and we would take our cardboard out and try to take it out on 42nd Street and break dance and get money from them rich white folks that was entertained by the dancing. And the pigs would come and cut up your linoleum and cut up your cardboard and take your spray paint cans and spray it in your face and all this other shit. I remember when white folk was totally against rap. That's why when I be seeing these rappers right now, these white folk, and they be trying to act more black than me with this shit, I be having to check them. And that's the problem with us as people. We as black people, we create shit, and we do it, and then we get tired of it and then just discard it instead of securing it before we discard it and move on to the next shit. So the minute we slow the vibration down in it enough, that's when the crackers come on, and then they find a way to synthesize it, and now they can do it. They did it with jazz. They did it with rock. They did it with blues. They did it with hip-hop. They did it with reggae. They did it with merengue. They do it with anything that they don't create. And then they get a bunch of niggas and give them niggas money, and what the niggas do is they co-sign them because they're getting money. But at the same time, the niggas don't realize that, hey, these crackers print money. You know what I'm saying? These niggas print it. So it is no value to them. They could just they can give you $50 million because they cousin own the mint. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And
so it has nothing really. It has nothing to do really with color, but it does when you are dealing with somebody that is always coveting yours. And I don't give a damn what anybody will tell you. Western society is based on white supremacy. It has nothing to do. The only reason why I have to stress that is because now that niggas got a black president, they act like there ain't no racism. You know what I mean? They act like none of this stuff is happening. They act like there's still not a genocide going on all over the planet against melanated people. But melanated people are giving up their melanin left and right.
Right. Another interesting observation, because, in hip-hop, you see the degradation of women. And, the nation can only be as strong as a woman. A nation can't rise above its woman. So, it's very interesting, when people have to realize that the images which are in these videos are going all around the world. I've been in Brazil, I've been in Egypt, and I've seen people in restaurants, and they're watching hip-hop videos. And, those people should never underestimate where these images are going to, because that's how people are identifying, a whole group of people the same. Very, very interesting.
Well, it is what you're saying, but on another tip, that whole men degrading women, that again is a byproduct of male-dominated societies in general, and that's all the retaliation of the time that they went in which women were ruling over men. So now we're to the point where we went through the stage where women was ruling men was ruling women, men is ruling women is ruling men. Now we're to the point where the royal family is supposed to rule. So in that now, men and women are now at each other's throats. But in hip-hop specifically, that whole thing about women being degraded and all that, that's true to a degree, but to another degree, a lot of the executives that are allowing this shit to go are women. Sylvia Rhone is a woman. Laverne Perry is a woman. There's mad women. The chick that run BET, that's a woman. Well, Barbara Lee, she's a figurehead. She don't really do shit. The BET is owned by Viacom now. But as a figurehead, that's still a woman. Same thing. The reason why you have such an outcry now in violence against women is based on feminism. Because according to the statistics in the United States, 65% of all violent crimes in the United States in terms of relationships and domestic violence is happening in women relationships. It's not even men already. Women are raping women now. Women are raping men. Women are killing their children and shit now. Women are exploiting themselves. Hollywood women, in the music industry and shit, these women are doing sex tapes before they get in the game, and then negotiating their releases as to when is the best time to release a sex tape during my career, so I can get a nice scandal going, so I can get some good movies and good records popping. Like, this is the level of the game that the woman has descended into, specifically, Right. And at the same time, though, you have this undercurrent resurgence of Caucasian women who are trying to revert to Moorish values, like polygamy, you know what I'm saying? Like, wearing their hair natural, putting locks and shit in their hair, having black babies. These are the women that are trying to come back and do that. White women. Black women are doing the opposite. A lot of black women are now, dating outside the race more. They making more excuses for what white folk do. They are allowing their wombs to be breeding grounds to create malefic entities by having babies with men that don't love you, by having babies from married men. You know what I'm saying? By stealing niggas' babies. Like, this is what's going on.
And definitely, once you change your hair, you lose the crown, and essentially, you've lost, many women have lost the crown because, they have decided to put chemicals. But at the same time, that's because, a lot of men, too, are damaged, both damaged goods. We need help. We got a caller on the line from the 301. Caller, did you have a question or a comment for the Duke?
Peace.
Yes. I heard him mention something earlier. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. You mentioned earlier something about Quetzalcoatl, that South American deity that they worshipped. I didn't come in at the very beginning of the program, so I was just wondering if you had mentioned anything about the reptilian connection and how that played into things, or are you even aware? I'm sure you're aware of it.
Well, yeah, because really the biggest secret is we're the aliens. We're the extraterrestrials.
Right, I've heard that.
We're the non-domestic foreigners.
Mm-hmm.
We're the domestic foreigners from this place. And the Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, the legend, or I should say the story of the hero twins, there's a book called the Popol Vuh, where you get into the story of the feathered serpent. And the biggest allegory is that the serpent, manifests from the bottom and rises to the top, and then creates a perfect balance between both the spheres. So this, symbolically, again, is the Kundalini Shakti being activated, right, and rising up the base of the spine, going up into the crown chakra. And the feathers, that's the serpent. The feathers the wings on the serpent represent the mental clarity and mental flight now that you're able to take place. Because the goal of all of these myths is to get us to understand that we need to be at least 50% physical, 50% non-physical. Because in order for us to be able to turn into those macabric and light vessels that we can be, we have to get rid of the physical baggage that's keeping us locked up here. Things like guilt, regret, perdition, angst, anger, all the hatred, you know what I mean? Racism.
Right.
All of these things are more baggage that keeps the body now having to hold on to that. Because really what it is, the baggage manifests in the form of cholesterol. There's good cholesterol, bad cholesterol. Cholesterol manifests in the body when the body feels like it's about to get hit. So it secretes all the cholesterol inside of the body and the organs to brace itself, to kind of cushion it. But if the attack now is not physical, but is psychic or mental, there's no physical impact now. So what the cholesterol does is it keeps excreting more and more cholesterol, waiting for itself to get hit, and then eventually that cholesterol hardens. It hardens the arteries, and then it literally weighs you down. This is when you start to gain weight. This is when you get high blood pressure. This is when you get bursitis, and next thing you know, you're dead. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
When really,
someone in the chat room had mentioned Dr. Jewel Pookum, and I did see her on YouTube, and she was explaining about cholesterol and how melanin naturally, in melanated people, it produces more cholesterol. And I had gone to the doctor, and I was kind of like worried at the report that they had given me, but now I realized doing a little research that I shouldn't really be that worried because the melanin naturally produces more cholesterol in our body.
It has to, because you have more, because you have more to cover now. Because the melanin is evidence of the soul. That's really the issue too. And there is the ethereal body. The melanin that you have has to cover both the physical body and the ethereal body. So of course you need to have more cholesterol in that sense. But what they tell you, they don't tell. This is what I mean about making us believe that we all evolved along the same genetic lines or evolutionary lines. It's a lie. Right. Because when you do that, you blend us all in the same basket and now you're trying to make me believe I came from a damn ape. And that's not the truth.
No.
It's not real. At the time that these people was apes, we had civilizations upon civilizations. We didn't even think of it. There was points in our time where we forgot they even existed. Right. We'd be like, nah, that ain't the same way we talk about Bigfoot and Sasquatch and all that now. The same way you used to talk about them then. Like, nah, that ain't real. Living in Kemet somewhere on the now. Like, nah. Then 250,000 years later, here we are. You know what I'm saying? Now we're saying the opposite. Now we're saying things like, melanin? Nah, it don't really do that. Nah. You know what I'm saying? Like, how far we've fallen.
Okay, now when you say the original people, from what I understand from some of the other people that I've been looking at online, like Dr. Blair and Dr. Pookum and Dr. Yaqoob, they were explaining about the Olmecs. Did you cover that? I got here kind of late, so. And is that what you were referring to? And I'm going to take the answer offline, off the phone. Okay, thanks.
I just want to say that Aseer has a website if anyone wants to go to. Let me just get it up. www.Aseer, that's ASEER, the Duke of Tears.com. Posted in the chat room. And it will be on the main page, but he also has online classes. I think, are they still on at the moment?
Yeah, actually, we're taking we're in the middle of our beginners online course, 4-week course right now, and we're going to start taking.
Well, I mean, it's definitely a great website that you have there. So I'll post it in the chat room. But yeah, we've got. Let's see how long we've got left of the show. I think we're down to 19 minutes, but yeah, please just go in.
Essentially what the sister was saying is exactly right. Is just that we have to stop making excuses. And again, this is everything I'm saying is a fact. You know what I mean? To me, though, you know what I mean. When I talk about there's facts that we deal with. This is what I mean. You can be right about something and not be correct. You know what I mean? You can be factual about something and that something still not be true. This is what I mean about Western society, is that as many things as we're building on that are true, there can be a whole bunch of other people on the other side of the spectrum that can find stuff to try to disprove what you're saying. That's why it's not about proving anything to another man or a government. And that's why these governments are forming and destroying themselves, because the time for outdated forms of communication is done. All of them old rituals, people still sacrificing chickens and stuff like that, you know, in old practices. People still, you know, going to church, going to mosque, going to synagogue. If that's what you want to do, cool. But just know, your ancestors created religion to school the babies about what spirituality is. So religion is like the kindergarten for spiritual awakening. And just like kindergarten, if you started out, let's say, as a Christian, right, and you still a Christian towards the end of your life, that does not mean that you wasted your life. It's just to say that you have gone so deep into that Christian thing that you didn't really see nothing else, right? And that's cool if that's your choice. But to me, it's like when people say that when people keep talking to me about Africa, that's all well and good, and there is a lot of beautiful things over there. And again, society did start over there. But again, at the time that society started, all of the continents were together. So the whole thing was Africa, if we want to keep it real. Just like prior to 1831, anything west of Mali was Africa. So I'm in Africa right now. I'm in West Africa, technically.
Right.
See? But again,
and
at the same time,
right.
I'm sorry. But at the same time, though, there's no such place. There's no such place as Africa. You know what I'm saying? It's not like when you get off the plane, there's a big word on the ground, like in the cartoons, that say Africa, let you know you're there. That's not what that's.
And as well with Europe, it's surely, you know, the peninsula of Asia. I mean, it's, you know, it's not a separate continent. I mean, so much has been covered up. But you know, I work part-time in a school, and you know, it's very interesting because you definitely get to see how, I call them concentration camps, and you definitely get to see how people are bred in a hive mentality. And you know, in your view, what is the role of education, and what can we really teach the children?
If we want our children to be sovereign and brought up in the glory of the Most High, meaning with the consciousness of our ancestral self, as well as our celestial self, as well as our physical self, then you're gonna have to start taking kids out of school. School is not the place for children. School is a place for education, but the term educate comes from the Latin term educate, or educate, which means to take away from. mean to teach. Teach mean to teach. You know what I'm saying? Educate means take away.
Right.
And education in Western society is about white supremacy and making white folks seem like if it wasn't for them, there would be no world. So if that's what you want your children to learn, then you send your children to school. People don't realize that the reason why black children go to Catholic school to this day is because of the edict that took place in 1510 by the Pope that forced Moorish children to go to Vatican schools and learn and not practice Moorish culture. They had to wear uniforms. Their parents had to take them to school. They had to go do catechism. They had to do everything. And we still doing this shit. So in a time now, these children that are being born today are going to destroy this world. So if you are going to try to stick your child in a school when that school is ultimately going to be destroyed by that child is going to look at you as the enemy. You're trying to indoctrinate me. You're trying to turn me against myself. Remember when we was growing up, kids used to have names like Tyrone, Steve, Alex.
Right.
Then when we got older, we started hearing names like Fuquan, Deshaun, you know what I'm saying, Keisha, Taisha, right? Then we started hearing names like Knowledge Born, you know what I'm saying, Stephen Bay, Eldest. Now these kids is being born with names like Honor, Justice, you know what I'm saying, Amor. These kids are being born to be the embodiments of what they are. So you cannot tell them the baby named Justice. You can't take no baby named Justice and say eventually I want you to grow up to be a police officer. No, this little kid Justice is going to grow up to kill cops. You know what I'm saying? Because this generation of crystal children is here to destroy this world. I just saw a movie last night called Case 39. It's coming out, I think it came out yesterday. Try to see that movie. You're going to see a bunch of movies about little kids killing people. You know what I'm saying? Now that's one, they're using it on one level as population control. On another level, they're using it to discourage, to encourage parents to be more strict and more sadistic in their upbringing of the children. But on another level, it's a cautionary tale for Western society because the children that are incarnating now are being incarnated to get rid of this old world because this is the old world we're in now. So Obama's daughters, Malasha and Malia, whatever their names is or whatever, they gonna be the ones too. They're gonna be the ones to go against the whole shit too. You know what I mean?
One thing I found fascinating is that one thing I found fascinating is that we always talk about the end of the world, and I definitely feel the world is ending because the world is an idea, and that idea, that we're in that world is coming to an end. It's coming to an end for a lot of us awakening and realizing that we're tremendously powerful. That's why we need to be kept in a perpetual state of fear and mind control.
That's it, bro. But again, that stuff. The human frequency, according to Department of Energy, is 435 megahertz. Right? If you vibration past that, then everything that they're doing is mind control. Everybody that's on a basic 435 megahertz don't affect you. Which means if you frequency, you'll basically phase out of this reality altogether without having to do nothing. It gets to a point where it's like you wake up in them Twilight Zone episodes where the dude wake up and everybody's the same, but he's totally different, or he go to sleep and wake up and nobody's left in the world. It's just him. This is what is called a cosmic awakening. When you get to the point where you realize that there really is nothing out there. It's all in here, and everything out there is a physical representation of that. So as above, so below. So in that now, like I said, there's the you under the 12 sign zodiac, and then there's the you under the 13 sign zodiac. The classes that the advanced classes that we're doing is getting people to understand the difference between, let's say, what a sidereal year is and what a Sophic year is. It's not about joining old, outdated forms of religion because you're scared of standing and speaking to God yourself. It's about you seeing the Creator and the creatrix within yourself and loving that to such a degree that that love is just permeates from you, that you don't even have to open your mouth for people to just see that, yo, this person knows something. Let me not fuck with them. That's the halo when they talk about is put over the elect of God, and when they talk about 144,000 shall be chosen, and those that elect, they shall come, and every knee shall bow, and every tongue shall confess that He is Lord. This is the time that we're in now. The way that we read the Bible is even in reverse. The way that we look at the map is reversed. Look at a basic map, and when you look at it, the way they've shown it to you, turn it upside down. That's how the earth looks. That's how it looks. So that means that everything that is at the bottom of the planet is actually at the top. So that means that the southern hemisphere is actually the top, and the northern is actually the bottom. And if that's the case, that means when we read books, when we read the Bible, we're reading the Bible in reverse. If that's the case, then that means that Revelation, which is the time we're in now, is actually the first book, and Genesis is actually the last. So what is destroyed in this epoch shall be reversed and brought to fruition in the new. And we're in the new because we have the fortitude and the capacity that when we're talking about these things, we see ourselves in that place. So now is the time for us to start to begin and create new forms of tradition, new forms of ancestral understanding. Whereas all the old stuff is cool, but now is the time, none of that old ritual shit work. The new rituals work. The best rituals that will work now are the ones that's coming to, that you are moved physically, soul-wise to do. That's the shit that's going to work. It ain't going to be the getting up, standing up, 5 times a day and all that shit. That shit ain't going to work no more.
And when we talk about language,
that ain't going to work no more.
Right. Just piggybacking off what you said, when we talk about language, because you said something about reverse, and, when I found out that, the English language goes from left to right, and a lot of ancient languages actually go from right to left. If you're reading Arabic,
that's right.
It's the reverse. And when we talk of English, even the words, when someone says good morning, you're almost wishing them, it almost means like your morning, That's
right.
how we use the word. You look at grammar, that comes from the Book of Spells, the Grimoire. So,
that's right.
How is language being used to keep us in this matrix? Because a lot of indigenous languages, they didn't have a past, present, and a future tense. They just had a present tense. So in your mind, how do you feel the language, and what can we do about the language to sort of get it out of the matrix? Because if we don't understand true meaning of the language, surely we'll only be controlled by it.
Exactly, brother. One of the best things you could do is start, if I could suggest anything to anybody, start calling things by their true names or the names that they initiated as. You have a lot of people get into more science and they become Muslims or whatever, and they say that I need to change my slave name and all of that. Just because your name used to be Richard and you changed it to Ramel does not mean that you're not still Richard. You see what I'm saying? You have to understand that Richard was the name that you came in on. Therefore, that name still has a certain degree of power in it. And the more you negate it, the more you negate yourself. You getting into consciousness should never be seen as something that in order to get it, you got to stop doing something, unless it's something of devilishment. So in that now, language, there is a power to be able to, like in magic, an exorcism. If you know the name of the entity or the demon that is manifested, then you own that demon and you can bind it into your signet ring the way that Solomon did. But the signet ring is symbolic of the pineal gland. So if you know the name of a demon, if you know the name of, and I don't mean just a conjure demon, I mean like physical people. So the name also not only denotes what the person is doing, it also denotes the function of who the person is, but also denotes the function. So if I see somebody acting on some bullshit and I call them out on it, that's me calling them by their real name. You understand? And there's a power in that. That's why nicknames, see what I'm saying? Nicholas names, Nickelodeon names, you know what I'm saying? Nick Claus names, Nick Claus names, you see what I'm saying? Are there to deter you from your real self. Because the moment you're born, you're surrounded by mad people that want to disassociate you from who you really are as being born into the kingdom of the Most High. So from the day you're born to the day you die, you're being confronted with this world trying to tell you that God don't exist and that you are not from that. So if you're the type of person who you feel like your language, like English, the word English used to be spelled with a Y when it was in the old Vulgate Latin. So it was English at one time. You know what I'm saying? So the English language as a spellmancy, or in the form of langomancy, was a form of being able to get all of the world languages and put them out of context. That's why the word Moor means a lot, right? But Moors used to worship Allah, who is the moon goddess, feminine version of Allah. You see? So technically, Moor still means the same thing, right? But because it's not qualified as an individual group of people anymore, in the mainstream at least, people can disavow it and put it in different texts and languages so it can become an adjective or whatever. You know what I'm saying? But Moor is a verb, because we as Moors are always in motion, always active, always searching to be more. You see? So therefore, we can never be a person, place, or a thing, or an adjective, or a synonym. You see what I'm saying? Or a homonym, right? Which is a bunch of niggas that look the same, but different, but act the same. What is that? That's to me, that's trying to make everybody the same thing, and it's not. But again, through language, through grammar, right? A gram of Moors. Gram means a minute amount. Mar, another word for more, right? It's another way of saying Morisco. Little more, same thing. Or Moreno, right? Or Mudejar. All of these are names which started being used to describe us after we started growing. So we went from Moors to Mudejars to Moriscos to Morenos to Negros to Negritos to niggas. You see what I'm saying? But even that, even nigga comes from Nagar. And you know that's the original God. Sambo means God. You know what I'm saying? Buckwheat. Wow. The word buckwheat comes from the Normans. Noir, meaning black, man being person, right? I mean, individual. And the noir men were the people, noir men meant those who brought the wheat. Because they brought buckwheat to Europe. So Normandy is a place full of black people.
I mean, you're really getting so much love in the chat room. Really, just
tell everybody love them and love. Thank you so much for
I mean, definitely, this has just been a treat for us at Infinite Waters. You've definitely blessed us with your awesome presence, taking time out of your busy schedule. I know that, you've got a busy schedule, and, much love to your family, your group, and your children.
With the family group.
Definitely, I would love for you to come back in future, dive with us.
We would love to.
Please just leave the family if there's anything you want to share with us. Once again, you can go to Aseer's website, sorry, what was it again?
www.aseertheduketeers.com. We have a blog talk show every Monday night from 9 to 11 called Super Heru Radio, Heru Radio. That's from 9 to 11. We also I have a email. You can contact me directly if you're interested in taking any of the classes at House. It's HOUSEOFEL at hotmail.com. That's houseofl@hotmail.com. Anybody that needs any tarot readings, dream interpretation readings, neurolinguistic deprogramming, anybody who would like to get any of the onyx eggs we have, great for divine meditation. I have all of that. please contact me. Also on Facebook, you can shout at us at Aseer Ali Cordoba, Cordoba, on Facebook. But any of our lectures and anything we have, we'll post on YouTube for everybody to see. But our website again is www.aseertheduketears.com. And tears is spelled Tiers, as in level. Tears meaning levels, you know. But I thank you, my brother, for having such a great show and bringing us on.
You know, just amazing to have you on the show. You've really, even in the chat room, curious listener said, eyes are getting open today. I mean, I can definitely resonates with me. Really, I definitely thank you once again. And,
thank you.
You know, you really opened up a lot of eyes tonight. And tonight in London, this afternoon there in America.
Yeah, well, we banging on the post, right? We banging on the post. See, that nigga had to bounce. See how they got all the people trying to kill that nigga. It's over.
Yeah, I mean, I was down there because normally I go free line skating in Hyde Park. So, I mean, so many people were there just to see the Pope. And at the time I was there, I left at 6 o'clock.
The Pope in Hyde Park, like Jekyll and Hyde. Mm-hmm.
Right,
That's
right.
That's Hyde Park, right? Mm-hmm.
Right, yeah.
Oh, man.
I mean, you know, so many people were there. Security was there. You know, it's just amazing still how many people are brainwashed and comatose. But, you know, these are the signs.
They're supposed to be, bro. They're supposed to be. Like the other, if I could put one last thought out there to the people, to the family,
please
don't waste time trying to convince people about this type of consciousness. Focus on yourself, your family, and those people that you can deal with it with. Do not cast your pearls to swine. Don't try to save every and anybody. It's not about that. It's now about people saving themselves, and it's about people who you've been talking to about this knowledge now. They're starting to wake up to see everything you've been saying is true, and now they're calling you off the phone. The minute you take time out in your day to start building with them after you gave them the knowledge that they didn't pay attention to is equivalent to you not building your ark the day it start raining. Build your ark first. You know what I'm saying? And everybody thought Noah or Gilgamesh was full of shit until that started raining and it didn't stop. So this is the time when the first few drops is falling. You see the tornadoes in Brooklyn? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's over.
Right.
It's over. Let us all rejoice. Let us be happy. Let us finally light a great candle, smoke a big spliff towards this party, which is the end of Babylon, the end of Rome. You know what I'm saying? We all have already made it. The end is not yet. God loves us all. You know what I'm saying? And we can get there together if we continue to be real and truthful with each other, man. And shows like yours, brother, shows like mine are definitely the beacons that are going to help us make this transition. So, again, man, thank you.
Oh, definitely. I mean, Aseer also has a show called on Blog Talk Radio, Super Heru 3.0, which is, you know, I'm an avid listener of that. So,
yes, sir.
You know, again, brother, you know, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule. And, you know, please stay diving and stay in balanced spirits because, you know, it's, I always say it's cold out there.
Yeah, it is. It is.
You know, stay warm.
But we're going to get there. We made it. That's really what I want to say to people, too, man. We made it. We're already on the other side of the 2012 crap. Don't get caught up in the movies. Don't get caught up in the hoopla. It's a season just like summer. We done passed. We're already there. We're just about to catch up to the real us. You know what I'm saying? So, for the family, again, I definitely say peace. If you can, please shout at us at Super Hayward Radio on Monday night from 9 to 11. Or holler at me on the email, houseofl@hotmail.com. L is spelled E-L. And again, my brother, Infinite Waters, thank you so much, man, for having us. I really enjoyed it.
Well, I mean, anytime, you know, the door is open because I definitely feel that, you know, brothers like you are definitely, you know, doing the science and helping awake so many people, you know. Not that it's your job, but at the same time, you know, you're singing your song and, you know, it's creating ripples. I always say some people throw rocks in the ocean, some people throw pebbles, but rocks make bigger waves. So, you know, they go further.
Right.
Definitely you're throwing rocks. So, definitely, stay diving into Infinite Waters and.
Word, I'm gonna do that.
Yeah, definitely.
My best to the family, man. Let's bang on these devils and let's ride to this frequency. Because again, man, we made it. The fact that we can even have this type of conversation.
Right. I'm in London, crossing over the seas. Definitely. Definitely signs of the times.
Definitely, man. So with that, I say go step, my brother.
Okay, definitely. Thank you once again. Definitely, thank you. Much blessings to you and
peace to the family. Everybody can shout me out anytime, man. I'm around. Peace.
Okay. Peace. Thank you. Wow, that was Aseer the Duke of Tears. Another great show on Infinite Waters. We'll be back on Sunday.